Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of the Sports Insight with your host Alandar Khan. And yes, I will be with you guys for the next half an hour discussing sports from all across the globe. You guys can reach us through our social media handle, which is @Indus News Sports. That's basically both for Twitter and Instagram. But anyways, we'll go to the headlines first. Yes, talking about cricket, India hammered England by 7 wickets in the second T20 International in Ahmedabad. Series level 1-1. And yes, from the world of Premier League, Manchester United beat West Ham 1-0 on Sunday. And yes, from the world of golf, Justin Thomas actually managed to win the Players' Championship on Sunday. From the world of Olympics, yes, it is still going, but Japan has to limit the size of the foreign delegations in Tokyo Olympics. And yes, those were the headlines. And yes, we should only talk about cricket. When we start talking about cricket, definitely there were two major things that we talked about. First was obviously India managing to win the second T20 by 7 wickets against England. And that was an interesting match. The thing is, as I mentioned before, earlier on the show, it was mostly India versus England. But, both of them are on first and the second position. But to discuss further the last victory that took place for India, obviously, we have with us Rohit Juglan all the way from India. Rohit, thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
All right, so Rohit, let's talk about the victory that India that happened on Sunday, the match which was on Sunday, and India managed to win by 7 wickets. And obviously, England was bowled all out for 164 runs for 6 wickets. How did you see it impacting the future of cricket with regards to how India has been, on the verge of being on the first of the ICC ranking with regards to T20?
So now, as you already pointed out, it's a great game, and I think it started all really well for Team India, especially after losing that first T20 quite convincingly. And as you rightly pointed out, it's number 1 and number 2. It's between number 1 and number 2.
Right.
So what had happened between New Zealand and Australia, New Zealand losing the series there by 2-3, and then it's obviously affecting India's ranking. India's number 2 right now, and that's why we are watching this belter of a competition between India and England. And talking about previous night, I think it was a great weekend to end it with. What a blistering performance from Ishan Kishan, and then Virat Kohli getting the mojo back. Everyone knew that there is a bit of delay, but when he will arrive in style. And the chase master is there. You can talk about Rishabh Pant, you can talk about Ishan Kishan a lot. A complete performance, I think. I'm not remembering anything like that for a while right now, because I am remembering one game in 2018 in Manchester, I think, where KL Rahul just took everything away from England in 2018.
Right.
But I think after that, it's a great victory. It's a complete performance, all box checked.
Right. Even if we look back on the first match, England managed to win that first match. Now India has actually come up to a point of tying the series. Both the matches now. So we've got 3 more matches to go with regards to the T20. And even if we look back into the test side as well, India have managed to hold England to a point of no return. So besides the fact that England is all the way from England in India playing the matches, you definitely believe in that home ground positivity or the home ground edge. How do you see that impacting the future of the 3 matches that are coming our way?
I think India made a point, and starting from your question, I would like to start it from where you left it, because bounce back is the new term. It's the new adjective. You linked up with Team India, linking up with Team India right now, because what we have done in Australia, we were down and out on the first test, 36 all out. Everyone is writing us off, including Michael Vaughan, including the greats of the game, Shane Warne. You can take his name also. And after that, what Indian team did is history right now.
True.
And they bounced back. What happened in Test cricket when they came to Chennai? England team, after defeating Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka, they came back to Chennai and they beat us, and hands down they beat us. And everyone again talking about the Indians are not performing well, home advantage and everything,
Right.
but India bounced back again. And
True.
they're a 3-1 clinching victory, thumping victory for India. And now again, they lost the first one, and everyone again is questioning on their performances. But yeah, if you talk about home advantage, it's really there. 2021, sorry, this is, and
Right.
the World Cup will be here in October, November.
Right.
So I think home advantage will be with India. They are very much preparing the tracks like that. Earlier we saw a pitch with black soil, ball just skidding on it,
Right.
and yesterday we saw a different kind of track. Ball is just gripping on it. And
Right.
I don't know whether you went through that post-match presentation of Owen Morgan. He said on his post-match presentation that we are preparing for a red soil pitch that is made up of red soil. So if you're talking about red clay,
Right.
it assists spinners more. So I think India is playing really well with the home conditions. They are giving different variations of the pitch because this Narendra Modi Stadium, the world's largest cricket stadium, is at 11 strips in it, 11 pitches in it. So they have all different kind of soils in it, and
Right.
they are executing everything really well. Not for now, but for the T20 World Cup coming in next 3 to 4 months.
Right. You also talked about the match. Obviously, Team India went to Australia. They had a very tough time with regards to the Australian situation, and that there came that simple issue which every player is facing, which is obviously the quarantine perspectives and how strictly they're managing to follow those rules. But as you mentioned that, Team India was 36 all out, and everybody was like, what happened? How did this, take place, and, came up to this conclusive side. But yes, eventually they did manage to make their mark since then and up till now. And like you said, for instance, if we look at the idea of teams coming to for instance, if team comes to India, they go through that quarantine perspective as well. These days, these quarantine situations are really, really devastating because in Pakistan, when we had the series against South Africa, I remember de Kock eventually once left back, and obviously they lost the series, but when they went back, he said that, he needs a break for this mental situation that has been created due to the COVID-19 protocols and the quarantining. How do you see this affecting not only this current situation of England, but also the upcoming T20 World Cup that you just talked about?
The world has started adjusting to it, but I have talked a lot. I had a conversation with a lot of players playing for India right now, playing for India.
Right.
I had interviews with players while during the lockdown. I've talked to Danish Kaneria also from Pakistan. I've talked to Yasser Arafat also from Pakistan.
Right.
He was at that time in London. So
right.
I had this word with various players, and they are saying this to me that look, it's really a very tough time. They've never faced something like this. Ravi Shastri, interestingly, the head coach of Team India, he interestingly said this, that after all those things, what happened in the cricket ground, the test which India lost, they all out 36, and after that, coming from that infield situation, infield challenges, ultimately there is one thing which is constantly in their mind, that they have to, according to venues, shift to a new quarantine rule. So
right.
that's the bigger challenge. Rohit Sharma, coming from a hard quarantine, coming back to Indian team, then he has to travel from Melbourne to then to Sydney, and
True.
then from Sydney to Goa, and they are all different states, and in different states they are depending on the COVID cases, there are different kind of rules. There are different kind of, somewhere there is hard quarantine, somewhere there is soft quarantine, somewhere there is you can't visit the next player's door. So these are very tough challenges. I think mentally it's really tough. You saw, I think when Moeen Ali, he said that I can't able to play more in
right.
the Test series against India, and
right.
he went back. And English team said that it's a rotation policy. But actually, this is affecting everyone, every part of the world. I think the Pakistani team, when they traveled to New Zealand, cases came up, and there's again these things are around that. How now players will cope around it, and everything it's very much new to the players, but I think they are started adjusting around it. Indian team is most of the Indian players are with that bio bubble since I think October, from when the IPL started, and then from IPL to Australia, and then Australia to India, and now we are again on the verge of another IPL. So it's very difficult time, but I think as they all have said to me, that we are started adjusting.
Right.
Mentally, it's playing a very, very big role.
The most difficult biosecure bubble, in my opinion, from what I've read so far, and I've talked to different players and different journalists so far, is basically the one that is in New Zealand or in Australia, because they have very hard and fast, strict rules. What they do is they definitely have to keep you in isolation, and that makes them, in the quarantining. Once you're done with the quarantine part, then you as a team remain in a biosecure bubble. But obviously, when hosting a lot of teams, as you talked about the upcoming World Cup, how do you see the control? Because it's going to be very tricky to manage. The more players you have, the more trickier it gets. Because people out there, people who are spectators who want to watch the matches, obviously there will be no stadium attendance up till now. Let's hope COVID cases come up to a good conclusive side by then. But how do you see that biosecure bubble is purely intact? Because I think one organization individually would not be able to pull that off for such a big event.
I think it's an administration challenge. It's a challenge for the medical facilities in a country. Means it's not all about cricket. Means
right.
You have to have good administrative services. You have to have good medical services when it
right.
comes to this, to host a tournament like this. Because before that, I think India, we are hosting for bilateral series only. And before that, I think a big event which is in the world is, I think, Olympics. And Japan is very much strict about no foreign travelers.
Right.
So for this, I think if India is looking, to make it possible for the audience, it will be it will be, I think, a real difficult challenge for them, because for IPL, they have very much said that in the earlier part that don't expect any crowd anywhere. Right. In fact, the ODI series between India and England, which has to be happening in Pune, there will be no crowd because of the rising case in the Maharashtra state of India. So it will be a challenge for the administration. It will be a challenge for the medical team. It will be a big challenge for BCCI.
True.
To, I think, get all teams along and then give them hotels, proper isolation. With that, I think the facilities, because Indian team, they haven't complained a lot about it. Right. But talking with some players, I came to know that there were basic things which were lacking in Australian, services when right. they are going from a Melbourne to a Sydney or a Sydney to a Gaba. Right. Different teams have faced this, but because these are such tough times, they are not complaining about it. I'm sure that Pakistani team will also had some problem in New Zealand. The kind of situation right now we are in, or in the situation the cricket is playing. Right. But I think it will be a very difficult situation for the administration, for the medical people, for the BCCI to host this tournament. If they went through this without a single player or a single staff or an umpire or any official getting a COVID positive, a COVID positive symptom, I think the biggest win for every cricket
absolutely.
fan, for ICC,
absolutely, Rohit.
Everyone.
We just hope for the very best, that everything turns out very well. Thank you very much for being with us on the show and imparting the knowledge with regards to your experience of cricket. So yes, that was Rohit, and Rohit obviously gave us a brief overview not only about India beating England, but how it was actually planning further ahead. Anyways, what we'll do is we'll take a quick break, and once we're back, there are further more news. See you guys after the break. And yes, welcome back from the break. And yes, we were surely talking about the world of cricket before we went to the break. But now we surely look into the updates with regards to the Premier League. But to discuss more about the Premier League, the in-depth analysis, and all what's been happening lately with regards to the standings, we have with us Henry Winter, a sports journalist all the way from UK. Henry, thank you for being a part of the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Aslam.
Great. All right. So, Henry, to begin with, we surely would want to have a bit of info with regards to the experience that you have as a journalist in the UK.
Yes, well, I started my journalism career about 3 or 4 years ago, and I started writing for small publications about Newcastle United, my favourite team. And then I got a gig in radio with Pulse One in West Yorkshire, which is a fantastic local commercial radio station, right. Where we've covered all manner of sport, really. Obviously, Leeds United being the big team near where I'm based, who've had a fantastic story to follow over the last few years. And yeah, I try to get to as many games as I can, although obviously at the moment
Awesome.
It's a bit difficult with COVID, and we very much miss it going to the games.
But anyways, we'll switch over instantaneously and we'll jump to the last match that took place, the Manchester United winning against West Ham. Obviously, Craig Dawson's own goal kind of put them in this position and obviously made them move forward with regards to the standings. And not only that, we'll talk about how Chelsea played out against Leeds on Saturday. So we'll start with that. How do you see the analysis of the standings right now with regards to these matches?
Well, the Manchester United game was an interesting one, Alan, because it was very boring and very dull, actually. And it was that Craig Dawson own goal that decided a very dull game at Old Trafford, really. And look, Manchester United, they're not going to catch Manchester City at this point. It's out of the question. But what they're doing right now is they're just securing that top 4 spot, which is so important for a club the size of Manchester United.
Right. And what about... I totally agree, because we've been discussing the updates and standings, and nobody can catch up with Manchester City. But there's so many teams that have actually been trying. Even if we talk about Chelsea right now, Chelsea has finally come up to a point of not losing the past 12 matches. How do you see the strength of Thomas Tuchel bringing into Chelsea and bringing them to life? Because before this, things were very unstable, even though Frank Lampard himself, a brilliant footballer, but when it came to the execution of getting the teams up and running, things weren't really going his way. So what did Thomas Tuchel do to bring Chelsea to life?
What Thomas Tuchel has, Alan, is experience working with big players. And Frank Lampard, with all respect to him, didn't. He was at Derby County before he went to Chelsea, and it was a very big step up. And he had a bit of an embarrassment of riches, really, in the summer, in the last summer, with the players they brought in. What Thomas Tuchel is doing now is taking all these talented players and he's making it work. And I think for Frank, it was difficult because he had so many good players in so many good positions, and it seemed like he just couldn't quite work out who to put where, if you like. But Thomas Tuchel's been a revelation, really, because, like as you say, they're unbeaten in 12. They've got a lot of clean sheets as well, which is something that Chelsea was struggling to do beforehand. And like Manchester United, Chelsea are in the top 4 now. They'll be disappointed that they didn't get that win yesterday. That's 2 points dropped for them, really.
Right. Besides that, the chase is still on for the top 4. People have been very upset, as you mentioned before. The COVID situation has also trickled down the entire effect of the standings, even of the players themselves, those who've been suffering from it as well, making their comeback, but playing in the stadium which is empty. How do you see that situation impacting? Because it has impacted, I think, sports all across the globe right now, even if it's cricket, even if it's Australian Open, if it's Olympics, and even if we talk about Premier League. How do you see that, and how do you see that in the long run?
There's 2 problems, really, with what COVID's done to the Premier League and sport in general, as you say. One being, like you say, that not having the fans there has an immeasurable impact on teams, especially teams lower down, who need the crowd as their 12th man, really, to get through these games. And they've lost that. So you're seeing teams that ordinarily would have had great home form suddenly not having good home form. Everton springs to mind when you think about that. Their home form's been all over the place, really. And Goodison Park, where they play, is such a packed crowd. And would definitely push them on to win the games that they've lost points in. The other problem is the long COVID, which is obviously the long-term side effects of COVID-19. So players like Kai Havertz for Chelsea, his kind of time at the club has been hampered by COVID, and it's taken him a while to recover. We're seeing this with other players like Alan Saint-Maximin for Newcastle United. He had COVID-19, and I don't think what people realised at the start was the long-term effect and impact that this disease has on the players themselves. And even though they don't test positive after a few weeks, their energy levels are still down, and people are still complaining about lower energy levels, almost a year from having COVID-19. So it's had such an enormous impact, and for us fans as well. We're still loving football, but it's not the same watching it without thousands of fans cheering on their teams on the other side.
Absolutely, and we honestly don't really know how long will this go. As you said, long-term repercussions. There's so much out there. People are having so many issues afterwards, after being cleared up from COVID-19. Even though I've heard that slowly and gradually people have started the vaccination as well. But then the COVID is also evolving. Okay, let's go to the chart again and let's talk about some major upsets to begin with. I'll start with your take on Liverpool not being able to prove or get to that point where they should have been, because initially, I think about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we still had hope. But there is something missing with regards to their performance.
It's such a strange situation, the Liverpool case. You know, this is a team that won the Champions League a few years ago, the Premier League the year after, and to see what's happening now is it's unbelievable, really. You know, I think you can only look at the players. You can only look at the players because Jurgen Klopp, I know that he's had his personal issues off the pitch recently, which might have had an impact, but they've still got the same coaching staff there. They've still got the same mentality there. You've got to maybe, the fans have played a part in that for Liverpool. Anfield is such an amazing atmosphere. I've been there a few times myself. And they'll be missing that, definitely. But it's a real shock where Liverpool are. I mean, they may not even make Champions League at this point. There's teams like West Ham and Everton up there who ordinarily wouldn't be fighting for Champions League necessarily, who are taking the places of teams like Liverpool, Tottenham. So it is unbelievable, really, where they are.
Right. And with regards to the top four, who do you actually see finally managing to be there with your experience and how things are flowing up till now? Besides Manchester City will definitely be there. Nobody's going to take that. But besides that.
Yeah, Manchester City are going to win the league. I think we've accepted that.
Yes.
I see Man United staying up there. I think they've really come on leaps and bounds in the last few months. Even without Pogba the last sort of few weeks, they've still managed to grind out some of these results. Obviously, the derby win against Manchester City was an incredible turning point for them. True. So I can see them staying. It's whether or not West Ham United have the players in their squad to push them over the line, because I can't see Leicester and Chelsea moving from third and fourth. Leicester were absolutely phenomenal at the weekend. They won 5-0 against Sheffield United, which was just a stunning result for them. And Chelsea, like we've spoken about already, have gone from strength to strength. And I do see Thomas Tuchel's experience pushing them across the line and finishing in a Champions League place. I think it will be too much for West Ham, Everton and Tottenham unless something big happens. But we don't know. It's been such a strange season, Alan. There's been many weird results because of the COVID situation, because of the slightly compressed season as well. So it would take a brave man to call it at the moment. But I would say that top three of City, United and Leicester City looks pretty secure. That 5-point gap between Leicester and Chelsea is growing. So it should be very interesting at the top of the table come the end of the season. We've got 10 games left, so anything can happen.
Yes, we can always look into the turn of events, because as we talk about the turn of events, the COVID-19 situation has brought in so many different changes, and not only in the players, but as mentioned, as you talked about the top three. And seeing Chelsea coming back to life has been really interesting. Like as we started off discussing it at the very start, if they manage to maybe have a few victories, though, I think the chart that we currently see now would somewhat be pretty much like this. What do you think about that?
I think I'm with you on that one, to be honest. I really do see City, United, Leicester City and Chelsea taking that top four. I think it's just a bit too late for Liverpool now. I think Tottenham, obviously, their form has been a bit all over the place. A disappointing loss to Arsenal yesterday. Right. So, no, I agree with you, Alan. I think that's our final top four right there. But who knows?
All right. So I think we had a pretty much updates with regards to the standings. I think if you want to add in something before we move on to the next news, that would be great. Any quick word with regards to Premier League for us?
I think what for Premier League fans at the moment, the biggest thing, because football in England has been a bit of a godsend really for a lot of people here, because we've been in lockdown, as you'll know, for many months, and it's fantastic to have at least some normality going on. So the Premier League has been a hugely important thing for a lot of football fans and people in this country. We're hearing plans that the Premier League will want up to 10,000 fans back in their stadiums for the last two games of the season, which would be phenomenal. Obviously, there's a big relegation battle happening, and as we've mentioned, the battle for the top four. I think it'd be fantastic to get the fans back in for those last couple of games, I should say. But it's been a very strange season. We can't really call anything at the moment, but we're really enjoying covering it, Alan.
All right. Well, thank you so very much, Henry, for being a part of the show and putting in your knowledge.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So that Henry Winter, and he obviously discussed the entire situation with regards to the Premier League. And yes, we all know it's been a very, very tricky season. Why? Because not only because of the COVID situation, but I guess because the stadiums are empty, nobody's allowed to go, not even the journalists. So it's a very tricky time for all sports out there. But anyways, we'll jump over to the next news, which is we talk about golf. Yes, we were talking about golf before the weekend, and yes, Justin Thomas actually managed to win the championship on Sunday. And the strangest part was that Thomas fired a final round of 68 to clinch that one-shot victory over Westwood. Initially, we were thinking that maybe Lee Westwood would be more on the positive side towards victory, but I think at the last moment, Thomas managed to get that victory. Justin Thomas, congratulations to you with regards to the victory that you took in the world of golf. Quickly changing over to Tokyo Olympics. Yes, that would be the last news. And talking about Olympics, as discussed earlier, Tokyo Olympics is they have said yes to go ahead with it, but they'll restrict the accompanying staff to 11 people per head of state. And obviously they're trying that international delegates need to have a very limited amount of people with them. But it's not going to be an open event for people out there because of the COVID-19 situation. But they've decided to finally go ahead with it. Japan will surely have to manage their biosecure bubble, obviously for those athletes traveling, along with the only 11 people per head of state. Where I hope that the whole situation of COVID-19 comes to an end soon, because if this continues like this, it's surely going to be a very sad set for the entire world. Anyways, that was pretty much all the news from all across the globe. Now, you guys can surely reach out to us on our social media handle, which is @Indus News Sports, and that's basically both from Instagram and Twitter. Till then, take good care of yourself, and bye-bye.